Hello and welcome to Of the People. I'm Robert Chernin and we are thrilled to have with us North Dakota Governor running for President Doug Burgum. Governor Burgum, welcome to Of the People. Thank you for being here.
Robert, fantastic to be with you and thanks for being at this First in the Nation Summit.
Well, New Hampshire, if I've learned one thing, is all belly-to-belly retail politics, and you got to be here talking to the people, and the citizens are very, very engaged. I heard your speech. I thought your moral clarity on Israel was outstanding. Let's talk about that for a second real quick. You're starting to already see the White House back away from support for Israel. The word they're now using is proportionate response. I don't know how you have a proportionate response when the evil, the raping of women, the beheading of babies. So how do you tackle that as president in terms of addressing not only the war against Israel, but the larger issue of the head of the snake, which is Iran?
Well, you're right on track about Iran, because what I like to say, when I'm your president, this won't be happening, because what we've got is responding wars through weakness. The appeasement strategy that started under Obama relative to Iran with the Iran nuclear deal and now continued on under the Biden administration is the same thing. We were also weak on supporting Ukraine, and we were weak in essentially greenlighting Putin to go into Russia.
Right.
And then we were super weak when we pulled out of Afghanistan. I mean, wouldn't we want to have that Bagram air base right now as things start to heat up in the Middle East? And so we've basically done all that, and then all that greenlights China to do whatever they want in Taiwan. And so it's a set of policies that we have, both abroad and national security and home economically, that are all self-inflicted under Joe Biden. None of this needs to be happening. We got to go in a 180 different degree turn going forward on both national security and on our economy.
So, but specifically, Governor, with Iran, because we all know it starts and ends in Iran. Iran is the leading state sponsor of terrorism, and I think that's an understatement. Yes. The axis of evil, I understand, but how would you deal with Iran? What are the options that are on the table?
Well, the first thing we have to do is, right off the bat, is enforce the actual oil sanctions. There's supposed to be oil sanctions in place right now. No one's talking about that. The Biden administration isn't talking about that. Go look up the numbers. They've dramatically increased all of their exports in the last 2 or 3 months as the Biden administration has been negotiating on hostage releases, setting a price tag on every American's life overseas. I mean, with this crazy $6 billion. They released $10 billion to Iran back in June. That was like on page 48 in all the press. So all of this money that's being released is going, as you said, to the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. And we could have a three-front war in Israel with Hezbollah, Syria, and Iran, and they are...
And likely will.
And they're absolutely paying for all this stuff. So then guess who Iran is also providing armed drones to? Russia. So people are saying, should we support Ukraine? Yes, absolutely. Who's supporting the other side? Iran. Who's giving money to Iran? Joe Biden. Who's giving money to Hamas? Joe Biden. Joe Biden is actually funding both sides of these conflicts with the policies that they've been trying to do, is they're trying to chase appeasement. Appeasement, we learned from Neville Chamberlain, leads to one thing. It leads to world wars. And so that's what we're facing right now. It's that serious.
Yes, I believe Neville Chamberlain's quote was, "Peace in our time." Unfortunately not. So you talked about oil. Let's talk about energy. Let's talk about domestic energy real quick. Because under President Trump, we were essentially energy independent. And we went from being energy independent to now energy dependent again. How would you change that? What are the things that you would do as president to make us energy independent again? Because I know energy, North Dakota, is
well, we haven't gone far enough, because when we talked about energy independent, it was on a net basis. When Putin invaded Ukraine, that day that happened, we were still offloading 400,000 barrels of oil equivalent into New England because of dirty Russian heating oil, which is bad for the environment, versus clean natural gas from Pennsylvania, because you can't get a pipeline permitted under this administration from Pennsylvania to New England. And so what we have is, if we want to have true independence, everybody in the lower 48 has got to be able to consume U.S. generated energy only. Good for the environment, good for global stability. If we do that, that also puts us in a position, say on day one, we start selling energy to our friends and allies, versus having them buy it from our adversaries. Lower the cost of inflation, improve the economy, bring manufacturing jobs back, and increase global stability is quite straightforward. But instead, we've got an all-out assault on U.S. energy going on right now, whether it's in Alaska, whether it's killing legally permitted pipelines in America, or whether it's blocking natural gas pipelines. Just same thing. I mean, California needs to import oil every day to run their cars, and they could have pipelines from North Dakota or Texas, New Mexico, providing them alternative sources of clean fuels from the U.S. So we've got a national security risk because of the anti-energy, anti-pipeline approach of the Biden administration.
So in other words, climate change, according to the Biden administration, is the greatest threat to the globe, according to them, which makes, I agree with you.
The greatest threat to the environment is actually Biden's climate policies, not climate change.
Agreed.
Because the climate policies, if we try to get every car in America running as an EV, and we're using taxpayer money to subsidize the batteries and the cars, but not the workers, you end up with worker strikes. But I feel like the Biden energy policy was designed by China, because who are we going to buy the batteries from? China. And China is building those batteries in factories powered by coal. They're opening up a coal plant every week right now. They've got over 200 in queue to do that. And why would China be doing that? Because they're the largest importer of oil and gas. They're trying to get off of their dependence of oil and gas because they don't have any. And they're going to EVs for a completely different reason. It's not because they care about the environment. They're the world's largest polluter, and every week they're putting more CO2 in the air. But somehow they got people convinced that, even the Washington Post wrote an article about what a great job China was doing, moving to EVs. They're doing that because they don't have the energy we have. They don't have clean liquid fuels. They don't care about CO2 emissions. What they care about is being more energy secure. And no climate policy is going to stop them from pursuing that path. So it's complete naivete to think that if we offload energy production to China, that we're helping the planet. If you care about the environment, you want to have every ounce and every electron produced here in the United States.
Appreciate that. Last question, I know you're busy. You're running for president. Name ID is all important. This is your first run for president. The Klieg lights are totally different. What challenges have you faced trying to get your name out there, trying to get your policies out there, trying to get your policies heard? Because frankly, the Midwestern common sense, I think America has a hankering for some of that. What kind of challenges have you faced in the campaign to sort of get your message out there?
Well, we feel like we're off to a very strong start. I mean, people said you're not going to make the first debate. We did. Who are you, Doug? Who? You're not going to make the second debate. We did. We keep showing up in surprising ways, because as people, the more they know about us, the more they learn about us, the more they understand our policies, our message, and our capability, both in the private sector and in driving incredible success in a state that now has got the highest GDP of any of the Republican-led states in the country, highest workforce participation. We've got so many positive things going on in our home state. People are starting to understand that, hey, this guy, it could actually do this executive job, and he's done it globally. He knows how to compete and win in a global environment. That's what we have to do. We can't have any more Joe Bidens who spent their life in the Senate and never created a job. I've created more jobs than everybody else on the debate stage combined. I've been making payroll every 2 weeks since I was in my mid-20s. That's more than some people haven't done it for 2 weeks. I've been doing it for over 4 decades. And so when people start to understand what we can deliver about economy and about national security, they're saying, let's take a look. And we're confident in the voters. When the voting is 3 months away, when that happens, we know we're going to be near the top of the pack when that's happening.
Appreciate that. Folks, we've been talking to Governor Doug Burgum, running for president from New Hampshire, First in the Nation Summit. Governor Burgum, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.